This isn't gonna work. Doom has become one of the most recognizable names in the video game industry, paving the way for first-person shooters. Its software just kept making breakout after breakout after breakout, with vast innovations in tech gifted by the
benevolent hyper-intelligent architect of the post-singularity simulation, hyperspace cybernetic intelligence, and juvenile delinquent, the vessel that houses energy-based fourth-dimensional being. How does he have that same fate? John Carmack.
But, like all superstars, they eventually have a falling point. Doom 3 is considered the black sheep in the Doom franchise. Released on August 3rd, 2004, and developed by id Software, this game was hyped up to shit by players and outlets.
The most terrifying shooter ever made. Disturbingly realistic. Terrifying enemies. Convincingly lifelike. Densely atmospheric. And surprisingly expansive. Flawless. A mastery of the art form.
So, when it finally released, it was met with mixed reception. On one hand, it's considered a horror classic that provides an immersive experience, while on the other, it's hated for its vast differences, the intense dark lighting, and how slow the gameplay is. Does it still hold up after all these years, or does it actually deserve the hate it got? Well, let's dim the lights, get your PDA out, and rip and tear at a leisurely pace. Oh yeah, little side note here is that I'll be playing the BFG edition on PC for this review, not the original. I'll be getting into why that's important later on. In contrast to the philosophy of Doom 4, which is the story! Doom 3 puts more emphasis on telling a rather immersive narrative. The game features cutscenes, interactable NPCs, audio logs, and emails, with twists and turns along the way. You play as unnamed FPS protagonist number 397, or Marine, as you are being transferred to a new post on Mars City, a quaint little Martian colony that is definitely health and safety certified. You get acquainted with your new workplace, get to know your fellow employees, and start your first assignment. Until the gates of hell open. You then travel from point to point, gather different weapons and items, collecting PDAs and door keys, save some helpless NPCs, or not, do some puzzles while killing any unlucky demon that gets in your way. One thing I immediately like is the opening of the game. It builds up quite an atmosphere, with clues and details from characters and PDAs. You're just going about your way when a cutscene or email gives you the impression that something is off. Speaking of which, the cutscenes, they're not that bad. They look good for the time and have some good character animations that do hold up, but most of the time they can seem rather crusty. The lighting is probably the best aspect of the game. It looks damn good for a 2003 game. Even by today's standards, these environments just have a real artistic flair to them. The lighting also works and hiding some of those low-res and muddy textures, but damn, the final product just looks so damn good. I know some people have a problem with how dark this game is, and believe me, it gets dark as hell. You do have a flashlight, but there are some sections where you'll be walking down long stretches of darkness, and your flashlight will run out during a firefight. Keep in mind that the original had to use a flashlight as a secondary item, not a standalone feature like it is in the BFG edition. So I understand if someone gets a little frustrated with the darkness, but personally, I think the lighting and use of darkness adds to the atmosphere. You never know what's crawling in the dark, and they are not a force to be taken lightly. The combat is an aspect that is rather divisive. No longer are you strafing like crazy, shooting down hundreds of demons with weapons of mass destruction. Here, you're much more cumbersome, and your weapons don't deal as much damage. You can run and gun like in previous games, but it's not recommended on higher difficulties. You start off fighting demons one by one, but soon go up against groups bundled in each room. I think you fight like 5 or 6 at most in each encounter, but they are tough as balls. You need to act more cautiously and keep yourself at a distance. Enemies come in different varieties, from imps, possessed humans, lost souls, dog, robot thingies, naked spider ladies, and... oh my god. Oh my god! All these enemies have their own weapons and playstyle. Some will stand from afar to pick you off, while some will charge at you relentlessly. But while you're faced with overwhelming odds, you are not outgunned. Most of your arsenal, if used correctly, can be a force to be reckoned with, especially the shotgun. Except the pistol. Fuck the pistol. It may not be the fast-paced action as, let's say, Doom 4, but for what it is, the shooting still feels good and rather tense. Now, both of these games I would describe having good tension, but in different forms. Doom 4 has you running a marathon of shooting up different demons with a large array of deadly weapons, with various mechanics that encourages this game style. It's tension as in balls-to-the-wall action at all times. And while Doom 3 doesn't excel at active tension, it focuses on suspenseful tension. The game makes use of its lighting, sound design, music, enemy designs, and tight level design to create a foreboding, claustrophobic atmosphere. You have no idea when and where enemies will spawn, and whether or not you're well equipped for an encounter. It builds up a sense of dread, the fear of the unknown, that eventually leads to the payoff. That is how Doom 3 uses tension, and what it's trying to achieve. The game isn't trying to be a fast-paced arena FPS, but rather an immersive horror experience. You never have any prompts or buttons to push, but rather screens you navigate in the actual game world. You don't feel like you're in a game, but rather a participant of the world, and I think it does this exceptionally well with the use of PDAs. Along your journey, you'll come across various PDAs that have audio logs and emails that you investigate for either backstory, clues, or key codes. And I'll be honest, I enjoy piecing together the backstory and getting role details in the audio logs rather than the main story. It's really cool to see how differently each PDA is, from the information you get, or just how differently each person types out a key code or how they conversate with other people. And a special mention to the voice acting in the game, which is really solid. All the voice actors give a fantastic performance, even down to the minor NPCs.
I will need full access, Dr. Petruga, Delta included. I won't have any difficulties doing that, will I?
Only if you get lost, Swan. Just stay out of my way. Amazing things will happen here soon. You just wait.
So far, Doom 3 seems to have a lot going for it. But it also has some shit. Like I said before, the game is focused on being a horror game, except the further you go along, the more the game decides it wants to be an action game. By the halfway point, you have almost every weapon and a boatload of ammunition with plenty of health and armor pickups, depending on your difficulty. This is even more apparent in the BFG edition, where ammunition is more common. It still has a bit of atmosphere, but the levels and encounters focus more on being open and action-based than the previous. I did say this game has some good fucking atmosphere, but that depends on the person you are. Whether walking through a dim room with spooky sounds really scares you or not. The game has some jump scares, and some of them are pretty good and well paced. Most of them are lazily done. The enemies can feel rather bullet spongy, and the hitboxes can get ridiculous, as you either do a one-hit kill or unload 7 shotgun rounds into an imp. Enemies can be really cheap, as you walk through a door or corridor and just get jumped by an enemy that you weren't prepared for, and they'll just corner you until you can't move from a single spot. The sound is unfortunately mixed, with the music and ambience being really fucking good, seal of approval right here. Well, some gun sounds sound like you're shooting air pellets. Keep in mind that this is only apparent in the BFG edition, while in OG Doom 3, the guns sound really beefy and impactful. Some of the puzzles can get really tedious, and some levels have you backtracking to places you have no idea you were supposed to go.
Where the fuck do I go?
Boss fights are... they're really lame in this game, especially with the lack of any music or any fanfare build up to them. I mean, all you do is just go around, run around and shoot the boss, and the next one, not even, the cyber demon, the fucking cyber demon, all you do is just shoot AI enemies until an artifact charges up, and then you do that 3 times, and then the boss dies. Just... God, this is really disappointing. And for a tight corridor game, there are numerous unseeable pits that you can just fall off from. This is especially true if you're having a firefight in any room with any railings or stairs or just so dark you can't see what the fuck is going on. And some of the guns just become useless later on as you get your hands on better hardware. I mean, tell me, whoever still uses the machine gun after you get the chain gun? And the story's conclusion was pretty anticlimactic, with all the build-up and tension that just leaves you high and dry at the end, and just waiting to play the next DLC. And the spiders. Oh, the spiders. Fuck these things! But, despite all these shortcomings, the game still has a lot going for it that really keeps it held up. Compared to other Doom games, it detracts from what people liked about Doom. However, on its own, it's still a good game and a damn good horror game at that. If you keep in mind you'll be getting a different experience, I highly recommend you pick this game up. My PC ran it perfectly, and even works fine with some fine-tuning on potato machines. It's even readily available on other platforms, such as the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and the Switch. The BFG edition comes with 2 DLCs, which are pretty good, and as well as Doom 1 and Doom 2. So it's a bit of a bargain. But this comes with a big warning label. The BFG edition includes changes to all 3 games. You're not getting the original experience. When it comes to Doom 3, the lighting has been altered, FOV and cutscenes, character textures are a little different, the flashlight is connected to your gun, which may seem like a good fix, but for some, it ruins part of the horror experience and even breaks some designs of the levels and encounters. Quick saving pauses the game, and there's an overabundance of ammo and health packs. The BFG edition also comes with not really much mod support for Doom 3, but also Doom 1 and Doom 2. Both the BFG edition and Doom 3 are available separately. So it's really up to personal preference of what kind of experience you're looking for. However, I gotta warn you that there is a lot of technical issues going on with this re-release, and I would look into whether or not they've been solved, they've been patched out, especially with the most prevalent one being that you have to be connected to an online service at all times, and it keeps on disconnecting, which is really odd when most of these games are single player. Compared to the recent Doom 2016, Doom 3 doesn't try to be a hardcore arena FPS, which is trying to fuck the story and shoot all hell. But it stands on its own as a good game for what it was trying to be, and I wholeheartedly agree that it did a really bang-up good job with the game. I mean, it's not like there was an original Doom-style game that had more emphasis on horror, right?